Howdy folks, Tex Grebner here with Tex Grebner Outdoors. I hope you guys are ready for your Tex Grebner Outdoors Saturday morning cartoon awesomeness, because it is almost time for Illinois Archery season 2019. On this episode of Tex Grebner Outdoors, we're going to take a trip down memory lane, because while I failed to break the whitetail curse for another year, the truth is I actually had a really great archery season. And so we're going to take a trip down memory lane and revisit some of the best and worst hunts of last year's deer season. Now, I bring you the reality of hunting, and that's all there is to it. The truth is, this is all I ever really wanted to do. I always wanted to have my own hunting show. And then YouTube came along, and here I am. It might be an empire of mud, but it's mine. Now, if you want to support the channel in a way beyond simply watching the videos, you can go to TexGrebnerOutdoors.com, check out the Make It Weird sticker, the Make It Weird shirt, the Life Ain't Like the Pornos, Hunting Ain't Like the TV Show shirt, and of course my personal favorite, the Kill with Stick shirt. Because, arrgh! If you guys are looking for a reason to start a fitness journey, or you need motivation to continue a fitness journey, you can go to traintohunt.com, check out their programming, check out the Train to Hunt Challenge, and I hope to see you guys one of these years at a Train to Hunt National Championship. You do not have to be in good shape to be a good hunter, but as a hunter, you will never regret being in good shape. If you guys are traditional bow hunters and you're looking for a discount on all your tradlife supplies, you can go to threeriversarchery.com. Check out their merchandise, because you're probably going to be shopping there anyways unless you live near a traditional archery store in your area. Use the discount code of Tex Grebner in your checkout, and that will give you a shipping discount on all your tradlife supplies, arrows, broadheads, feathers. I really love the reflective arrow wraps, and it'll show your support for the channel, and it will give you a discount on your shipping, because every little bit helps. I want you guys to have a look, and I hope you guys enjoy looking at some of the best and worst moments from last year's hunting season. I've been filming my hunts for years and years, and I'm hoping that this year is going to be the year that I break the whitetail curse. I'm super hopeful, but after all, when the sun comes up on opening day, it washes away that phantasmagoria, and quite honestly, there's no way of knowing what's going to happen on a hunt. So here's hoping something shows up under that tree. Being an on-film outdoorsman does complicate things. Shit, if I just wanted to kill deer, that'd be no problem. But I care more about filming the animal, telling the hunting story, and capturing everything on film than I do about simply killing the animal. It just wouldn't feel right if I didn't take the cameras out. It's a bit like a fetish that way. You're into what you're into. I rushed out, got into my stand, but on the way to my stand coming down the hill, proof that Cornunos, the god of the hunt, has a special sense of humor when it comes to me. There was a big nanny doe standing in my food plot 30 yards down the hill that there was no way that I could have gotten a shot at. And luckily, she didn't blow, she didn't stomp, she didn't flag. She just casually walked away, which is almost worse. The good news was, at least there was a deer in my food plot. The bad news is, guess what, folks? I live in reality, so I wasn't actually able to be in my stand when the deer came under my stand for a perfect ambush. However, at least I had the squirrels to keep me company.
I got ADD real bad, and I'm not real good at sitting still. And when you're not expecting to see anything, well, then it makes it real difficult to actually apply yourself to sitting still and being a good hunter. Naturally, I got to fidgeting, and the wind was in my face, and I figured they'd just picked the cornfield across the property line, so that's where the deer are going to be. Probably nothing going to be coming my way. So naturally, gets to be just about dark. I stand up, and here's deer wheezing behind me. As you can tell, it's a super windy day. And speaking of thrill of the chase, it rained all morning, so I had time to do my workout before I headed to the stand. Of course, I came down that muddy-ass hill, crossed the creek, and ran into a deer right under this stand that immediately busted me. And so, the chase goes on. I spend so much time watching, waiting, and listening, and hoping and praying and scheming, that I tend to almost have a fear of success, because it is so rare that I actually have a deer under my stand in front of me that I don't hardly even know how I would react. Funnily enough, no sooner am I having these thoughts and getting ready to pack up than out of the corner of my eye, I see a deer doing exactly what I want it to do, coming across the creek and entering my food plot. I get camera number 1 on, I turn on my bow camera, and the deer is broadside at 15 yards, and I realize that I haven't turned on camera number 2. So I reach back, turn on camera number 2, and naturally, the deer just walks away. Well, that was a rush. Shout out to Kyle Mork of Dads and Angels Outdoors and Ryan Gill of Gill's Primitive Archery, because they simultaneously texted me, and for whatever reason it bypassed my phone's silent mode and spooked this doe. The whitetail curse goes on, but damned if I don't get a rush out of failing and being close to an animal equally as much as I do if I had killed it. You literally can't make this shit up. Taking a little bit of time today and gonna make sure that I'm practicing with my heavy winter gloves. Pretty good. There we go. Pretty alright group for shooting with winter gloves. I'd been hunting this stand a lot lately for the most part because it's super low impact to actually get in without pushing deer out the other side. Now I've been working towards breaking my whitetail curse for years and years at this point, and I've had to basically zero in one click at a time, like zeroing a rifle scope one click at a time, to try and narrow down where the deer are going to organically appear of their own will. And that's part of being a good deer hunter. And I hadn't had high hopes for this hunt. She'd come across the creek like a ghost, and I caught her out the corner of my eye. And I was able, believe it or not, to get my cameras rolling and get my bow off the hook. And now things got complicated because my heart was racing and I was terrified of spooking this deer. She came around the walnut trees and I was ready to draw, and she had me. I had been visualizing this and praying for this and preparing for this for literal years. And here I was actually faced with it, everything perfect, and trying my best not to completely fuck it up. Sitting like a statue, the minutes dragging on, using my endurance training to hold that bow straight and steady. She was 16 yards away, and the moment of truth was drawing nearer and nearer. This was absolutely perfect. She was exactly where I wanted her to be. I was shaking so badly as I drew my bow, not necessarily from buck fever, but from holding the pose for so long. I picked a spot and let fly. Nope. Holy shit, though. I missed.
I had overshot this doe in spite of the fact that I hadn't even hit my clicker for full extension on my draw.
Well, that's embarrassing. Clean. But that was fucking intense.
I was anxious to redeem myself at this stand after I missed that doe the other day last week. Now, of course, the wind was absolutely perfect if that deer were coming from the north. In fact, despite all the evidence that I had seen, a doe snuck up behind me, right into my scent cone, and just started blowing and stomping and just all around freaking out. Granted, the brush behind me was too thick, and I literally couldn't swing my bow around the tree and do anything about it. But that is the reality of hunting. And in spite of all the fancy shit out there, the only thing that really matters about scent control is the wind. If they can get upwind of you, you're not going to fool them. It still smarts me that I missed that doe, a shot that I should have been able to make drunken with the flu. And of course, the buck that I didn't take a shot at because the cameras weren't both rolling. Everybody looks forward to hunting the rut, because that's when the deer move a lot and they get generally pretty stupid. But if the rut comes and goes and you still don't have a deer, then you start to get real worried. What's going to be funny is I'm probably going to bust one of those bastards out at my stand across the creek when I leave. Serve me right. You bastards. It was the perfect kind of night for deer hunting in Illinois. I was hunting the stand that I'd recently hung, and I was happy to see that in my absence there had been a rub and a scrape made right around this stand. About an hour after I got into the stand, I saw some deer activity across the creek, but they were well out of range of my recurve. Now, I haven't had much time to practice with my recurve lately because I've spent most of my time hunting. And so I figured that I would limit my shots to shots that I couldn't possibly miss if a deer came within that range. Of course, I didn't expect to have an opportunity at any of these deer because they simply were well out of range. But then I got really excited because a deer was coming across the creek, and I got into position, and I got my cameras on and ready. And everything was so perfect as this button buck stepped into range and then turned broadside at 10 yards. And then I fucked up. How? I don't know. But I managed to miss a 10-yard broadside shot. It seems that the gods of the hunt hate me, because everything felt so absolutely perfect in that shot that I thought I was going to break the whitetail curse.
Clean arrow.
But we don't rise to our level of training, we fall to our level of mastery. And when an animal is in front of you, with a traditional bow in your hand, you forget everything you thought you once knew. And that's just the way it is. So I'm going to have to make sure that I dedicate more time to practice than simply sitting in a stand, because shooting like that won't break the whitetail curse, and I'm just thankful that it was a clean miss. I'll be honest with you. When I first started traditional archery, nothing ever showed up to my deer stands, so it didn't matter. At this point, I'm so deep in the trad life, it ain't like I can turn back, but I'll be honest with you.
If I was still a pin shooter, I'd have 3 dead deer right now.
I admit that I was frustrated and wondering where in the hell all the deer were. Hours and hours of sitting and wondering and watching and getting pissed at the squirrels that were in the brush behind me, until finally the cold was driven from my limbs by excitement when I finally looked over my shoulder and realized that it wasn't a squirrel at all, that a buck was behind my stand, coming through the timber, crunching the leaves, and sending my heart into my throat, and it was time for action. This buck was going to pass right under my stand, so close that I could have counted coup with a spear throw. But once I got my camera into position, he simply continued walking, and by the time that he stopped, he was not only out of range, but at a non-shootable position. And so I simply let him walk, because I would rather not shoot at all than shoot a bad shot. But the rest of the afternoon, I thought about my decisions, and I replayed everything in my mind over and over again. I had won at the high-stakes game of whack-a-mole, but I had failed to capitalize on a gift from the gods of the hunt. Everything had been so perfect. Waiting for the darkness to come down, I sat reflecting on what had happened. In retrospect, I should have positioned the camera where he was heading instead of filming him coming under the tree, and had my fingers on my string, ready to draw and fire my marten hunter down into his vitals at 5 yards when he cleared the limbs of my tree broadside. But that isn't how it went down, and I can't change it. Holy shit, that was exciting. Everything was perfect. It was cold, the wind was calm, the rut seemed to be kicking off, but I wasn't hopeful, until all of a sudden, like a ghost, I saw the buck standing across the creek, and I hoped to God that he was going to take the same trail. Everything was perfect, everything was ready, and my heart was absolutely in my throat. I tried to zen down my heart rate for the task at hand. The moment of truth was nigh, and I tensed up, ready to draw my bow and blatted at the buck. But he was at the edge of my effective range and was moving too fast for an ethical shot, and he didn't even slow down. All my buck lure had done was helped him find a real doe's hot trail, and so he circled around behind my stand and hit the cornfield. Buck lure is an interesting thing. Every year we spend hundreds of dollars on something that might as well be snake oil and juju. I'm not particularly religious because I was raised Catholic, so basically like the Marlboro Light of the pagan world. But the Bible verse, "Lord, don't let me be put to shame," keeps going through my head. As in, if a deer shows up, God, don't let me fuck it up. Today was absolutely barren. There was absolutely no movement whatsoever. Until I decided I was going to take a rabbit, because they were in season and it was in range, and I like eating rabbit a lot more than I do squirrel. You want to talk about making it weird? Rabbit out of a tree stand with a trad bow. Kill with sticks. It seems like it can only go downhill from here. You go out with high hopes, and then you think, well, shit, there's nothing gonna show up. But you still gotta go out. I sat here literally all day, and didn't see shit. Yeah, sure, there were a couple of squirrels and a rabbit that was out of range. And the most interesting thing that I saw all day was right after dark as I just get done packing up here. I'm 90% sure that I saw a damn UFO. Not saying that I saw aliens, I'm literally saying that I saw an object in the sky that I personally could not identify. If you can figure out where the deer want to be moving and get there before they get there, and you get alongside of them, that they'll damn near walk up and introduce themselves to you. So 3 hours of cold freezing later, I hear a fence wire twang, and there's only one critter that's going to twang a fence wire, and that's a white-tailed deer. And this plan was just dumb enough to work. I couldn't believe how much movement that I was getting away with, but the wind was right, and so this deer was not expecting me to be there. And so this doe trots out in front of me, and she's got a tree right over her vitals, and she's quartering away a little bit. And then she trots out a little bit further. I draw my bow and I stare a hole through this doe's heart. And then I sent it right over her back. How? I don't know. You see, when I stared a hole through her heart, I basically put my point on her heart, because I'd never expected a deer to be standing there, so I hadn't actually ranged that shot. I shot for 25 yards when this deer was standing at 17, dead center right over top of the vitals. The whitetail curse goes on. But, proof of concept, my plan was just dumb enough to work, but Wile E. Coyote is my spirit animal. You can practice and practice and practice, and there's nothing that can compare to an animal's reflexes. It's not like I'm shooting a slow arrow. I'm shooting a 960 grain arrow out of a 75-pound recurve. And the only way that you're even able to follow the arrow is for me to slow it down 50%. And it's still flying fast. Dead in the heart. Dead in the heart. I don't know what to tell you. I haven't really got high hopes for the rest of the season, but I'm going to continue going out because I have to, not because I want to. We're in Ahab territory at this point, but I find myself fantasizing about the next season. When these woods are warm, misty, wet, and verdant, this would be the absolute perfect spot to sit when the deer will be coming from my right side across the creek, or coming down to the creek from my left side. Now, I admit I've basically given up hope on food plots working, because I have pretty much no evidence that the deer even give a single shit about my food plots. Now, this was my birthday, and I didn't have anything better to do, being that it was a Saturday. And I'd also figured out by checking the regulations that I was actually able to bow hunt during the late gun season in Illinois, provided that I met the blaze orange requirements. Of course, it does seem very foolish trying to hunt with a stick bow when you're wearing a pumpkin suit. The early season, the pre-rut, the rut, the post-rut, the late season, with sprinklings of gun seasons in amongst the archery season breakups where the deer get shot to hell. I'm talking about the psychological stages, almost like acts in a Shakespearean tragedy, the psychological stages of the season, because every year archery season starts out with an anticipation, and while success is not guaranteed, success seems attainable. It seems achievable in the early season, all through the rut and even into the post-rut, there is an excitement. And then it finally slides into the late season, where it is an exercise in futility. But there is the fact of what dreams may come, as Shakespeare said. Is it worth it to go out and suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune? It got cold, and we got snow, which is exciting for me, because I love hunting whitetail on the snow because it makes them pop. And you can actually ghost around the timber just a little bit on soft powder. And there's just a terrible beauty to the woods in winter, especially in January when it's bitterly cold and everything's silent to where you can actually hear the creek water rushing and freezing, when you can actually hear things freezing. Nature really doesn't care. All you can do is match yourself up against the elements and see how you stack up to nature. Nature doesn't care. And quite honestly, anymore, neither do I. This was also an absolute bare bones setup. I didn't have time to get anything set up here. I just got in with my tripods and I kneeled in the snow most of the afternoon. 10 degrees outside, and then finally I saw the deer moving around on the wrong side of the property line and on the wrong side of the creek. They are so majestic, and it is one of the great pluses and curses of being a traditional bow hunter, because if the property line was not in the way, for a compound bow hunter, you could feasibly have taken a shot and killed one of these deer. But because of my limited range and because of the property line, I was able to watch deer in the late season being deer, being their wild and free, majestic selves. And as much as I wanted to break the whitetail curse, I couldn't help but think that they were beautiful, and that part of the joy of hunting them is that they are so difficult to hunt. And then, in a poetic irony, just at the tail end of shooting light, here they came. And I was in a bit of a moral predicament. It was more moonlight than shooting light, and they were at the very edge of my range. And all I could do was laugh as they took the trail that I had considered setting up on up the hill, but hadn't, in favor of this spot, because it was much more shielded by the snowed-in brush pile. But here they were, on my side of the property line, and they had won Illinois Archery Season 2018, the whitetail curse still unbroken. Hunting on film is stressful because you've got a lot of stuff going on. Solo hunting and solo filming is stressful. And of course, hunting with traditional archery equipment is difficult. I hunt unashamedly for sport. I don't have to hunt. I hunt because I want to. And I hunt with traditional archery equipment for the sport of it. And as you can see, the wily whitetails have run me a merry chase. But hopefully this year I break the whitetail curse. But after all, just like the t-shirt says, life ain't like the pornos, hunting ain't like the TV shows. And I bring you the reality of the Illinois archery season because I live in real life just like the rest of you. As always, God bless all my sportsmen of America. Join the NRA to protect our rights. Please check out my friends over at threeriversarchery.com. Thank you very much to those who are involved in law enforcement and those who serve in the military. And thanks for watching Tex Grebner Outdoors.